At 6:35 p.m. local time on April 1st, 2026, NASA's Space Launch System rocket lifted off from the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, marking the first time that a crew of people has departed the Earth to visit our moon in over 53 years. The launch itself went about as smoothly as these things get. There was one brief and minor concern in the minutes leading up to the scheduled launch time. Ground crews were a little concerned about readings from the flight termination system, what they call the FTS. It's basically a string of explosives that are rigged up to the main fuel tank of the rocket, and they act as a self-destruct mechanism if the booster was to ever lose control for any reason as it flies through the air. So the crew would abort and their capsule would fly away, then the entire rocket would explode before it posed any risk of falling on people. So it's the kind of system that you hope not to use, but you definitely want it to work properly if the need ever comes up. That little bit of chatter around the FTS delayed the launch by just a few minutes from the opening of the flight window at 6:24 p.m. But the issue was quickly resolved when the ground crew realized that they just had a faulty sensor reading and the system itself was actually working just fine. This came as a pleasant surprise to anyone who had been following the troubled journey of NASA's most powerful rocket, the SLS, probably best known for being over budget and behind schedule. This particular stack had given NASA problems earlier in the year when it started leaking hydrogen during a system test in February. Then after that was fixed, it started leaking helium a few days later, which led NASA to rolling the vehicle back into their assembly building, where it was taken apart and put back together and finally returned to the launch pad to await its crew. Of the 4 people on board NASA's moon rocket, 3 are American astronauts: Mission Commander Reed Wiseman, Pilot Victor Glover, and Mission Specialist Christina Cook. They are joined by Canadian Space Agency Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen, the first Canadian to participate in a crewed moon mission. But he's not the only international contribution to the Artemis program. The service module attached below the crew capsule that provides power, propulsion, and life support was actually made in Germany under a contract from the European Space Agency. This was reflected in the name that the crew chose for their spacecraft, Integrity, a nod to the integrated nature of the vehicle, the rocket, and entire Artemis program, with teams from across the USA and around the world working together to make this mission possible. And within seconds of booster ignition, the Integrity and her crew rose into a clear blue sky above the Florida coast, riding the most powerful rocket NASA has ever launched. 8.5 minutes into the flight, at an altitude of about 100 miles above the surface, the booster engines were shut down and the spacecraft was released into Earth orbit. From here, the Integrity is still connected